They thought the galaxy would stay silent, they thought humanity would kneel, but when the Zephyrian Empire executed 70,000 innocent women on live broadcasts, they didn't just kill scientists, they ignited Earth's fury, and in the cold vacuum between stars, vengeance had already begun to move. When stars witnessed darkness, the morning sky over Geneva was clear when the signal came through. Commander Sarah Chen was reviewing quarterly defense reports when every screen in the United Nations Space Command Center flickered to life simultaneously. The familiar blue and silver logo of Earth Defense Force disappeared, replaced by something far more sinister. The Zephyrian Empire's golden serpent emblem filled the screens, its three heads representing their dominion over mind, body, and soul. Sarah's coffee cup slipped from her fingers as the transmission began. No warning, no diplomatic preamble, just cold, calculated horror broadcast across every inhabited world in the galaxy. 70,000 women knelt in perfect rows on a platform that stretched beyond the horizon. The camera panned slowly, methodically, ensuring every viewer could see the scope of what was about to happen. These weren't criminals or soldiers. They wore the simple blue uniforms of colonial researchers, scientists, and teachers from humanity's outer settlements. Sarah recognized some faces from personnel files. Dr. Amanda Foster from the Kepler 442b research station, Professor Maria Santos from the Europa mining colony. These were mothers, daughters, sisters. They had committed no crime except being human in a galaxy ruled by those who saw humanity as useful servants, nothing more. The Zephyrian voice that accompanied the broadcast was mechanically perfect, emotionless as surgical steel. Let this demonstration serve as education to all inferior species. Compliance with imperial law is not optional. Resistance will be met with absolute consequences. The execution beams fired in unison, 70,000 points of light, each one erasing a life, a future, a story that would never be told. No screams, no pleas for mercy. The women simply vanished, reduced to particles that scattered in the alien wind. Sarah stood frozen as chaos erupted around her. Officers shouted into communications equipment, trying to reach the outer colonies. Alarms wailed as Earth's defense grid activated automatically, but Sarah could only stare at the empty platform where 70,000 human souls had existed moments before. Captain Jake Morrison burst through the command center doors, his Special Forces uniform still damp with training sweat. His team, the Phantom Raiders, had been running combat simulations when the broadcast began. Morrison's jaw was set in a hard line, his green eyes burning with controlled fury. "Commander, we need immediate authorization for Operation Nightfall," Morrison said, his voice steady despite the rage Sarah could see building behind his calm exterior. "Jake, we don't even know where they are. This could have been anywhere in Empire space," Sarah replied, though her mind was already racing through response scenarios. Dr. Elena Vasquez rushed into the room, her tablet displaying streams of data from across the galaxy. As Earth's leading expert on alien psychology and warfare, she had been analyzing the broadcast frame by frame. Her discovery made Sarah's blood run cold. "Commander, this wasn't random," Elena said, her Spanish accent thicker than usual with emotion. "Look at the metadata embedded in the signal. The Zephyrians wanted us to know exactly where this happened. Proxima Station, the research facility studying their ancient ruins." The pieces clicked together in Sarah's mind like a weapon being assembled. The women executed weren't just researchers. They were the team that had been investigating pre-Zephyrian artifacts, looking for clues about the galaxy's history before the Empire's rise to power. "They found something," Sarah whispered. "Something the Empire couldn't let them share." Morrison stepped closer to the command table, his hands clenched into fists. "My sister was stationed at Proxima. Lieutenant Jennifer Morrison, xenoarchaeology specialist." His voice cracked slightly on her name. "She sent me a message 3 days ago, said they were close to a breakthrough that would change everything." The weight of realization settled over the room like a shroud. This wasn't just an execution, it was the elimination of witnesses to something the Zephyrian Empire desperately wanted to keep hidden. Admiral Marcus Stone's gruff voice crackled over the intercom from Earth's orbital command station. The old soldier had seen 3 wars and countless conflicts, but Sarah had never heard him sound so shaken. "All department heads to Battle Station Alpha immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Within 30 minutes, Earth's top military and scientific minds gathered in the secure conference room buried deep beneath the Swiss mountains. The room that had been built after humanity's first contact with the Zephyrian Empire 50 years ago, when they had arrived claiming to bring peace and order to the chaotic outer systems. Sarah looked around the table at faces she had worked with for years. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity while navigating the complex politics of galactic civilization. Now, they were planning for war. Admiral Stone brought up a holographic display of human-controlled space. 47 colonies spread across 12 star systems, all officially under Zephyrian protection. In reality, they were subjects paying tribute in resources, labor, and now lives. Intelligence reports suggest the Empire is mobilizing additional fleets, Stone said, his weathered hands pointing to various tactical positions. They're not just trying to intimidate us, they're preparing for full subjugation. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood and activated her own presentation. Her research team had been monitoring Zephyrian communications for months, and what they had discovered painted a terrifying picture. The Empire isn't just maintaining control, she explained. They're conducting experiments. The tribute they demand isn't random. They're systematically collecting genetic samples, studying human physiology, learning our weaknesses. Morrison leaned forward, his voice deadly quiet. They're preparing to replace us. Not replace, Elena corrected. Improve us. Intelligence suggests they're developing hybrid soldiers combining human adaptability with Zephyrian technology. The women at Proxima discovered evidence of these experiments in the ancient ruins. Sarah felt the room's temperature seem to drop. The Empire hadn't just executed 70,000 women. They had silenced witnesses to genocide in preparation. What's our response capability? Sarah asked, though she feared the answer. Admiral Stone pulled up fleet positions. Officially, 3 cruiser groups, 47 frigates, and about 200 smaller craft spread across our colonies. Against the Empire's full military might, we'd last maybe 6 hours. Unofficially? Morrison asked. Stone's weathered face cracked into something resembling a smile. Unofficially, we've been preparing for this day since first contact. Project Sentinel has been building weapons and training soldiers in complete secrecy for 20 years. Sarah had heard whispers of Sentinel, but never imagined its true scope. Hidden shipyards in asteroid fields, weapons development in dead systems, training facilities disguised as mining operations. Humanity had been preparing for war while pretending to be peaceful servants. How long do we have? Sarah asked. Intelligence suggests the Empire will demand formal surrender within 72 hours, Elena reported. They expect us to submit after seeing their demonstration of power. Morrison stood, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. They don't know humans very well, do they? The room fell silent as Sarah considered their options. Surrender meant accepting slavery, possibly extinction. Resistance meant war against an enemy with superior technology and numbers. But the image of those 70,000 women dying for the crime of seeking truth made the choice clear. Send word to all Sentinel facilities, Sarah commanded. Full activation. All assets are now operational. Admiral Stone nodded grimly. I'll coordinate with fleet commanders. How do we respond to their demonstration? Sarah looked at Morrison, seeing the same determination in his eyes that she felt burning in her chest. We send our own message. Captain Morrison, your raiders are authorized for deep strike operations. Find their weak points and hit them hard. What about diplomatic channels? Elena asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. The Empire opened negotiations with mass murder, Sarah replied. We'll respond in the only language they seem to understand. As the meeting dispersed, Sarah remained in the conference room, staring at the tactical displays. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrian Empire was celebrating what they believed to be humanity's breaking point. They had shown their power, demonstrated the consequences of defiance, and expected submission. They were about to learn that humans had a different word for what they called submission. They called it motivation. Morrison paused at the door, looking back at Sarah. Commander, when we hit them hard. Those women deserve justice. They'll get it, Captain, I promise you that. As Earth's hidden war machine began to awaken, the galaxy prepared for a conflict unlike any it had ever seen. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled through fear for centuries, crushing any species that dared resist their will, but they had never faced humanity when it was truly angry. The transmission ended with the Empire's standard warning about maintaining order and accepting their benevolent rule. But hidden in the static, buried beneath layers of encryption, was another message, one that only humanity's most advanced computers could decode. It was Jennifer Morrison's final research data, transmitted in the moments before her execution, the discovery that would change everything, the truth that 70,000 women had died to protect, and now it was humanity's weapon. The reckoning begins. The darkness of space around Europa Station was deeper than usual. Captain Jake Morrison floated silently in his stealth suit, watching the Zephyrian patrol ships move in their predictable patterns around the massive detention facility. His team of 12 Phantom Raiders hung motionless in the void, invisible to the Empire's sensors, waiting for his signal. Morrison's earpiece crackled with the voice of Lieutenant Rosa Martinez, his tech specialist. Captain, I've got their communication grid mapped. 17 guard towers, 48 patrol drones, and approximately 300 prisoners in the lower levels. Human prisoners? Morrison asked, though he already knew the answer. Confirmed. Life signs match human biological patterns. They're alive, sir. Morrison felt his jaw clench. These were the survivors, the ones the Empire had decided were more valuable alive than dead. For now, intelligence suggested the Zephyrians were using human prisoners for their genetic experiments, treating them like laboratory animals. Ghost, what's your position? Morrison whispered into his comm. Sergeant Tommy Walker's voice came back barely louder than breathing. The man had earned his nickname by being able to infiltrate anywhere without leaving a trace. I'm inside their main computer core. Give me 2 more minutes and their security system will think everything is normal while I take a virtual tour of their files. Morrison looked at his chronometer. 48 hours had passed since the execution broadcast, and Project Sentinel had been moving faster than anyone thought possible. 3 simultaneous strikes were happening across Empire space. Morrison's team at Europa Station, Commander Chen's forces hitting the communication hub at Vega Prime, and a third team targeting the Empire's research facility at Wolf 359. Major Kim, status report, Morrison requested. Major David Kim's voice came through from the tactical command ship hidden behind Europa's ice. All teams are in position. Earth Command confirms Vega Prime assault begins in 10 minutes. Wolf 359 team is ready to move on your mark. Morrison took a deep breath of recycled air. This was it, the moment humanity stopped being victims and started being hunters. Ghost, you ready? Born ready, Captain. I've got something interesting here too. These files show the Empire has been planning this for decades. The execution wasn't just punishment, it was a field test. Field test for what? New execution technology designed specifically for human physiology. They've been studying us, learning exactly how to kill us most efficiently. Morrison felt cold fury settle in his chest like ice. The Empire hadn't just murdered 70,000 women, they had used them as test subjects to perfect murder. Download everything, we're going to need proof when this is over. Already on it, sir, but Captain, there's more. The prisoners down there include Dr. Amanda Foster's research team. They're not dead. Morrison's heart skipped a beat. Dr. Foster had been among those executed in the broadcast, but if her team was alive, they might have the complete research data that Jennifer had died protecting. Change of plans, Morrison announced to his team. This is now a rescue and intelligence operation. We get the prisoners and we get their data. Lieutenant Martinez's voice carried a note of concern. Sir, that's going to make extraction significantly more difficult. Then we better be significantly better than they expect. Morrison activated his suit's movement system and began gliding toward the station's docking bay. His team followed in perfect formation, 12 shadows moving through the darkness toward an enemy that considered humans nothing more than useful animals. The first Zephyrian guard died without knowing humans were on the station. Ghost's blade slid between the alien's neckplates with surgical precision, and the creature collapsed silently to the deck. The second guard turned just in time to see Morrison's face before a neural disruptor rendered him unconscious. Zephyrians have a different nervous system than humans, Dr. Elena Vasquez had explained during their briefing. What would kill us will only incapacitate them temporarily. You'll have maybe 20 minutes before they wake up. 20 minutes was more than enough for the Phantom Raiders. They moved through the station like ghosts, disabling guards and security systems with practiced efficiency. Martinez worked her electronic magic, convincing the station's computers that everything was normal while Ghost planted data extraction devices throughout their communication networks. The detention level was a nightmare of sterile white corridors and energy barriers. Behind each barrier, Morrison could see human faces staring back at him with expressions of disbelief and desperate hope. This is Captain Morrison, Earth Defense Force, he announced quietly as his team began overriding the cell locks. We're here to take you home. Dr. Rebecca Stone, Amanda Foster's second-in-command, stumbled out of her cell looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. Captain, you have to know what we found. The ruins on Proxima, they're not Zephyrian. They're from before the Empire existed. Tell me while we move, Morrison said, helping her walk toward the extraction point. The galaxy had another dominant species before the Zephyrians, Dr. Stone explained, her voice gaining strength as they moved. They were called the Architects. The Zephyrians didn't conquer the galaxy, they inherited it after the Architects vanished. Morrison's team moved the rescued prisoners through the station's corridors while Ghost continued downloading files from their databases. The implications of Dr. Stone's words were staggering. The Empire has been lying about their history, she continued. They're not ancient rulers, they're scavengers who found advanced technology and used it to subjugate everyone else. Where are the Architects now? Morrison asked. That's what Amanda figured out before they took us. The Architects didn't vanish. They're sleeping. The ruins are actually massive hibernation facilities spread across the galaxy. Morrison stopped walking. Sleeping? Waiting. The inscription suggests they went into stasis during some kind of galactic crisis, but Captain, if they could be awakened, they'd want their galaxy back, Morrison finished. Ghost's voice crackled through the comm. Captain, I've got the complete files downloaded, but we've got company. Empire reinforcements just dropped out of hyperspace. Looks like our 20 minutes are up early. Morrison looked at the rescued prisoners, 43 scientists and researchers who held the key to ending the Empire's reign of terror. Martinez, get these people to the extraction point. Ghost, set charges throughout their data core. If we can't have their files, nobody can. Sir, what about you? Martinez asked. I'm going to send a message. Morrison made his way to the station's main communication array while his team evacuated the prisoners. The Zephyrian reinforcements were still 10 minutes out, enough time for what he had in mind. He activated the station's emergency broadcast system and overrode their communication protocols. His message would go out on every frequency, to every world in the galaxy. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Force, he began, staring directly into the camera. 3 days ago, the Zephyrian Empire murdered 70,000 innocent women and broadcast it across the galaxy as a demonstration of their power. Morrison held up a data chip containing Ghost's downloads. What they didn't tell you is that those women died because they discovered the truth. The Zephyrian Empire is built on lies. They are not the ancient rulers of this galaxy. They are parasites who found technology they didn't create and used it to enslave civilizations that should be free. He could hear explosions in the distance as Ghost's charges began detonating throughout the station. The Empire thinks fear makes them strong. They believe that by showing their cruelty, they can break the spirit of any species that opposes them. Morrison smiled into the camera, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. They obviously don't know humans very well. Morrison smiled into the camera, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. They obviously don't know humans very well. Behind him, the detention center erupted in flames as the Phantom Raiders' explosives turned the Empire's prison into scrap metal. We are coming for you, Empire. Not as subjects, not as servants, but as the inheritors of justice that you have denied this galaxy for too long. The transmission cut as Morrison's extraction ship burst through the station's hull, collecting him and his team as the facility burned around them. The rescued prisoners were already aboard, along with terabytes of stolen Empire data and proof of their crimes. All teams report, Morrison ordered as their ship jumped to hyperspace. Commander Chen's voice came through from Vega Prime. Communication hub destroyed. Their coordination across 17 systems is down. We also recovered detailed plans for something called Final Solution Protocol. Wolf 359 team reporting, came another voice. Research facility neutralized. We found evidence of genetic experiments on hundreds of different species. The Empire has been using conquered populations as test subjects for decades. Morrison settled into his command chair as Earth came into view through the ship's viewport. Major Kim, how did the Empire respond to our broadcast? Sir, they're mobilizing everything. Full Warfleet estimated arrival at Earth in 60 hours, but Captain, we're getting responses from across the galaxy. Other species are starting to ask questions, demanding answers about Empire history. Dr. Stone moved to Morrison's side, her eyes bright with possibility. Captain, if we can find more Architect sites, if we can wake them up, we might not have to fight this war alone, Morrison concluded. As their ship docked with Earth's orbital command station, Morrison looked out at the blue world below. For 50 years, humanity had accepted the Empire's rule, believing they were just one small species in a galaxy of powers beyond their understanding. But the galaxy was about to learn something the Empire had forgotten in their arrogance. Humans didn't just fight for themselves, they fought for everyone who couldn't fight back. Admiral Stone's gruff voice filled the ship's communication system. All Phantom Raider teams, report to Battle Station Alpha immediately. We've got work to do. Morrison stood and looked at his team. These 12 men and women who had just struck the first real blow against an empire that had ruled through fear for centuries. "You ready to wake up some sleeping gods?" Ghost grinned, his face still streaked with soot from the explosions. "As long as they're on our side when they wake up." "They will be," Dr. Stone said quietly. "The architects built their civilization on cooperation, not conquest. When they see what the Empire has done to their galaxy." Morrison nodded and headed toward the docking bay. The Empire had started this war with the execution of 70,000 innocent women, but humanity was going to finish it by awakening the rightful rulers of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled through fear for too long. It was time for justice. When humanity roared. The Zephyrian war fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts. Over 2,000 ships stretched across the outer edge of Earth's solar system, their hulls gleaming with the cold light of distant stars. At their head rode the Empire's flagship, Eternal Dominion, a massive dreadnought that had never known defeat in 3 centuries of conquest. General Patricia Hayes stood in Earth's orbital command center, watching the tactical display with the calm of someone who had prepared for this moment her entire career. Around her, the command staff worked with quiet efficiency, coordinating humanity's response to what the Empire clearly intended to be their final solution. "Admiral Stone, fleet status," Hayes commanded. Stone's weathered face appeared on the main screen from the bridge of the battleship Defiance. "All Sentinel vessels are in position. We've got 412 combat-ready ships ranging from frigates to our new Dreadnought-class vessels." "Against 2,000 Empire ships," Hayes noted calmly. "Yes, ma'am, but they don't know what they're flying into." Hayes nodded. For 20 years, Project Sentinel had been developing weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter Zephyrian technology. The Empire's arrogance had been humanity's greatest advantage. They had never bothered to truly study human capabilities, dismissing them as primitive servants. That dismissal was about to cost them everything. Captain Lisa Andrews checked her flight systems aboard the experimental warship Defiance 2, humanity's most advanced vessel. Unlike the massive, heavily armored Empire ships, human vessels were smaller, faster, and designed around a philosophy the Zephyrians had never encountered: adaptability over superiority. "Control, this is Defiance 2. All systems green, crew ready for combat operations." "Confirmed, Defiance 2. You are authorized for advanced strike protocols." Andrews smiled grimly. Advanced strike protocols were a polite way of saying, do whatever it takes to win. The Defiance 2 carried experimental weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy, technology that human scientists had developed by studying captured Empire equipment and improving on it. Dr. Robert Cross worked frantically in his laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface, making final adjustments to the Sentinel defense system. For 2 decades, he had been developing technology that could level the playing field between humanity and the Empire. Now, with alien ships filling the sky above, his life's work would be put to the ultimate test. "Sarah, the grid is ready," he reported to Commander Chen via secure communication. "Every defense satellite, every orbital platform, every ship in our fleet is now linked to the Sentinel network." "What are we looking at, Robert?" "The Empire's technology relies on centralized command and control. Their ships are incredibly powerful, but they're not designed to operate independently. If we can disrupt their coordination, we turn their strength into weakness," Chen finished. "How long do you need?" "Give me 12 minutes to fully integrate the system. After that, we'll see how the Empire likes fighting an enemy that adapts faster than they can react." High Lord Zektar stood on the bridge of Eternal Dominion, his silver armor gleaming under the ship's harsh lights. The Zephyrian commander had conquered 47 star systems in his career, and he had never encountered a species foolish enough to resist once they witnessed the Empire's true power. "Status of the human fleet?" he demanded. 400 vessels in defensive formation around their homeworld, High Lord. Primitive designs, mostly chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons. Zektar's mandibles clicked in what passed for Zephyrian laughter. "Kinetic weapons against our shields? Are they planning to throw stones at us?" "It appears so, High Lord. Shall we commence the cleansing?" "No. Send them our terms first. I want them to understand the futility of resistance before we demonstrate it." The communication channel opened and Zektar's image appeared on screens throughout the human fleet. His three-eyed face was a mask of cold authority, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of absolute power. "Primitive humans, you have defied the natural order of the galaxy. Your terrorist attacks on Imperial facilities have marked your species for extermination. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift." General Hayes appeared on her own screen, facing the alien commander with no trace of fear in her expression. "Hi, Lord Zektar, I presume. You've made a long journey for nothing. Earth doesn't surrender. Then Earth will burn. You cannot comprehend the forces arrayed against you." "Actually, we can," Hayes replied calmly. "We've been studying your empire for 50 years. We know exactly what you are." Zektar's eyes narrowed. "And what are we, primitive?" "Parasites. The Zephyrian Empire is built on technology you didn't create, ruling over a galaxy that isn't yours. You're not conquerors, you're scavengers." The alien commander's face darkened with rage. "You dare!" "We dare everything," Hayes interrupted. "That's what you never understood about humans. We don't accept that things have to be the way they are." Hayes cut the transmission and turned to her command staff. "All units, engage at will. Let's show them what humans do when we're angry." The Battle of Earth began with a silence that stretched across space like a held breath. Two fleets faced each other across millions of kilometers, technology and determination preparing to clash in the darkness between worlds. The Empire fired first. Thousands of energy beams lanced through space toward human ships, weapons that could vaporize mountains striking with devastating precision. But the human fleet moved like no enemy the Zephyrians had ever faced. Captain Andrews threw the Defiance II into a spinning dive that should have torn the ship apart under the stress. Instead, her vessel danced between energy beams, returning fire with weapons that adapted their frequency to match enemy shields. "Control, this is Defiance II. Their shields are calibrated for their own technology. Our adaptive weapons are cutting through like paper." Throughout the human fleet, ships moved with impossible coordination. Dr. Cross's Sentinel network allowed them to share information instantly, adapting to enemy tactics faster than the Zephyrians could adjust their strategies. "Hi, Lord," one of Zektar's officers reported, panic creeping into his voice. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. Their ships are acting as a single entity. Impossible. No species has that level of coordination." "Sir, we've lost 47 vessels in the first engagement. Their weapons are adapting to our defenses in real time." Zektar stared at the tactical display, watching human ships weave through his formation like predators among prey. This wasn't how wars were supposed to be fought. The Empire's enemies always relied on brute force or superior numbers. They didn't adapt, didn't learn, didn't improve during battle. "Launch the extermination drones," Zektar commanded. "If conventional weapons won't work, we'll use bioweapons." Thousands of small craft launched from Empire ships, each one carrying plague weapons designed to destroy human biology. But as they approached Earth's atmosphere, something impossible happened. The planet's defense grid came alive. Not just weapons, platforms, and satellites, but every piece of technology in the system. Communication arrays became targeting systems. Mining platforms became missile launchers. Even civilian spacecraft joined the defense, their crews volunteering for missions that meant certain death. Dr. Cross watched his sensors as the Sentinel network reached full integration. Every human device, from military battleships to personal communication tablets, was now part of a single, vast intelligence network. "Sarah, the network is complete. We're not just fighting as individual ships anymore. We're fighting as humanity itself." The extermination drones died in waves as Earth's improvised defenses tore them apart. Weapons that had been designed to kill humans were defeated by human ingenuity, turning the Empire's greatest advantage into a liability. But the battle was far from over. Zektar still commanded nearly 2,000 ships, and his rage was growing with each human success. "Prepare the planet killer," he commanded. "If we cannot rule them, we will erase them." The Eternal Dominion's primary weapon began charging, a massive energy cannon capable of cracking worlds. The Empire had used it 17 times in their history, always against planets that refused to surrender. Captain Andrews saw the energy build up on her sensors and knew what it meant. "Control, the flagship is charging a planet-killer weapon. Estimated firing time, 8 minutes. Confirmed, Defiance II. All available units concentrate fire on Eternal Dominion." But even as the human fleet focused their attack on the Empire flagship, Andrews knew they couldn't break through its massive shields in time. The planet killer would fire, and Earth would die, unless someone got close enough to stop it from the inside. "Control, this is Captain Andrews. I'm going to ram the flagship." "Negative, Defiance II. We need you alive." Andrews looked at her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "Control, someone has to stop that weapon. My ship is fast enough to get through their defenses." "Lisa," General Hayes' voice came through personally, "there has to be another way." "There is no other way, General. Earth is our home. Our families are down there. Our future is down there." Andrews paused, thinking of all the worlds the Empire had destroyed, all the species they had enslaved. Someone has to stop them. The Defiance II broke from the human formation, accelerating toward the Empire flagship at maximum velocity. Enemy fire concentrated on the small ship, but Andrews piloted through the barrage with inhuman skill, her vessel dancing between death rays and plasma bolts. "Ma'am," her weapons officer called out, "I'm detecting something strange. Long-range sensors are picking up massive energy signatures throughout the galaxy." "What kind of signatures?" "Unknown, but they're big, really big, and they're all activating simultaneously." Andrews felt her heart skip as she realized what was happening. The architect sites that Dr. Stone had discovered were awakening. Across the galaxy, ancient powers that had slept for millennia were stirring in response to the Empire's aggression. "Control, you need to know. The architects are waking up. Whatever we do here, we're not alone anymore." As the Defiance II closed the distance to eternal dominion, space around Earth began to shimmer. Massive forms materialized from hyperspace, ships that dwarfed even the Empire's largest vessels. But these weren't built for war. They were built for protection, for nurturing life across the galaxy. The architects had returned. Zektar stared in horror as beings he had thought were myths surrounded his fleet. The true rulers of the galaxy had awakened, and they were not pleased with what they found. One of the architect vessels opened a communication channel, and a voice older than civilization spoke with quiet authority. "Zephyrian Empire, you have violated the fundamental laws of this galaxy. You have enslaved free peoples, destroyed countless worlds, and perverted technology meant to protect life into instruments of death." "The galaxy belongs to the Empire," Zektar screamed. "We have ruled for centuries. You have been caretakers in our absence. That time is now over." The architect ships didn't fire weapons. They simply corrected. Empire vessels found their weapon systems shutting down, their engines failing, their communications going dark. The technology they had used to conquer the galaxy remembered its true masters and refused to serve tyranny any longer. Captain Andrews brought the Defiance II alongside Eternal Dominion's hull just as the Empire's flagship went dark. The planet-killer weapon powered down, its threat ended not by human sacrifice but by justice finally returning to the galaxy. General Hayes stood in her command center, watching as the most powerful empire in galactic history simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not conquered, but peacefully disarmed by powers that understood technology was meant to serve life, not destroy it. "All human vessels, stand down from combat alert," she commanded. "The war is over." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy transformed. The architects worked with human leaders and representatives from dozens of liberated species to establish a new galactic government based on cooperation rather than conquest. The memorial to the 70,000 women who died at Proxima Station was built on Earth's moon, visible to anyone looking up at the night sky. Their names were engraved in stone that would last forever, and their story became the foundation of the new Galactic Charter of Rights. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the memorial on its dedication day, reading the inscription that had been placed at its base. "They died seeking truth. Their sacrifice awakened justice. Their memory ensures freedom." Captain Jake Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, stood beside her with representatives from 43 species that had been freed from Empire rule. Behind them, construction was beginning on the new Galactic Assembly Building, where all species would have equal voice in governing their shared future. "Do you think they would be proud?" Morrison asked. Sarah looked up at the stars, where architect ships worked alongside human vessels and ships from dozens of other species, building a future based on the principles those 70,000 women had died protecting. "I think they would be amazed," she said. "They set out to uncover the past. Instead, they gave us the future." The galaxy was free. Humanity had found its place not as servants or conquerors, but as the species that remembered what it meant to fight for others. And in the end, that made all the difference. The Empire was gone, the architects had returned, and across countless worlds, beings who had lived in fear for centuries looked up at the stars and saw hope. It was exactly what 70,000 women had died to achieve.